What's going on, coaches? Welcome back to another episode. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel, as always. Today, what I want to talk about is perfecting your off-season strength and conditioning programming. I know it's that time of year where a lot of us coaches are starting to push the weight room a little bit more. We're trying to get guys into the weight room. I know up here in New York, basketball season is starting to wrap up, so winter sports is starting to wrap up, and a lot of us are starting to transition into spring sports, and for some that means spring lifts, spring ball, all the above. So what I want to talk about today is just how to perfect your all-season strength and conditioning program or programming. So let's just go ahead and start off with this. Most high school all seasons look like this: random workouts, max outs every Monday, conditioning every day. There's no progression. There's no sprint mechanics at all. So I know a lot of coaches at a high school level are not very qualified. I myself am a certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm also a certified personal trainer. I'm also a certified nutritionist as well. I also hold wide variety of different certifications ranging from sports performance specialist to mindset specialist to hormonal specialist. Like you name it, I pretty much have it within the fitness coaching industry, if you will. But like a lot of coaches, this is what the off season looks like. A lot of it is just throwing a workout together the day of, maxing out every Monday, trying to get guys to break a sweat, to get better, get faster, through conditioning every day. And there's really like no progression per se, and there's actually no teaching of the proper way to run or the proper way to sprint, which is a whole different video that I can make down the road. But something that a lot of inexperienced coaches do wrong is they try to push the intensity way too soon. They don't have any weeks where they're doing a deload. If you don't know what a deload is, it's essentially a week where you back off of the intensity, you back off of the RPE, you back off of that 1 rep max percentage that you're using, and you're just letting kids get some type of functional movement in. You're letting kids just move their bodies without this high intense load on their spine or high intense load on their neuromuscular system. So it's allowing their bodies to just relax for a week while getting good functional training in. Another thing that a lot of inexperienced coaches do is they treat conditioning like punishment. We're all guilty of it. If somebody gets in trouble, hey, you got sprints, or you got stairs, or like if the team doesn't perform well on Friday or Saturday, like, hey, Monday we're going to do a sprint for every first down allowed, or we're going to do a sprint for every point we gave up. A lot of coaches like to treat conditioning like punishment, but in reality, conditioning is a tool that can actually help you. I'd rather have punishments look more like, hey, we're going to clean up the entire school. We're going to clean up, the bleachers. We're going to help the custodial staff. Since we got in trouble, as a team, we're going to help the custodial staff. Or we're going to do more community service. Like, I feel like punishment should be something that's going to be beneficial to somebody else, and it's going to be a way of us giving back. I don't see conditioning as punishment. A lot of inexperienced coaches, they also ignore hamstring and trunk work. I think some of the biggest injuries that you see, within our sport is pulled hamstrings, hamstring strains, and it's usually the first muscular system to break down. I also see a lot of athletes, especially in today's high school world, who don't know how to brace their trunk or brace their core. I see a lot of athletes who don't know how to use their hips either, which plays a part in trunk work as well. But also a lot of inexperienced coaches, they see what college programs and NFL programs are doing, and they try to copy them. But the reality is, you're not an NFL or a college program. You're a high school program. All right, and bad programming creates slower athletes. It creates soft tissue injuries, like we've been talking about. It creates burnout by July. So by the time you even get to your season, your kids are burnt out because your programming is not designed to be effective, to be functional, and to be progressive. It's designed to burn kids out. It's designed to really try to get a big max number. So some coaches like to show this off on Twitter and act like their strength program is next level just because they have a kid, squat 700 or 600 pounds. But in reality, like, the program itself is not good. Strong weight room kids, are average football players to say the least. And I can confidently, give some prime examples. This is one of my kids back in South Carolina, running back Reggion Bennett. He's a senior in college now, squatting 700 pounds. I believe Reggion was maybe 155, 165 whenever that happened. This is another example of, hold on. There we go. This is another example of how my programming, has worked for other athletes over the past. Caden Gibson, I coached him whenever I was at Sussex College. He went from 155 to 175 in 4 months. This is Martin Martini with probably the coolest name for a safety out there as of late. He could also probably make a good professional wrestler with that name. But as you see, whenever he went to a camp at FDU, he was ranked 7th out of 465 athletes, with his pro agility being a 4.2. This is another example of one of my athletes at Sussex College, squatting 655. Before I got to Sussex, I believe his max was around 450-ish. So he wasn't cracking the 600s at all. And then this is another athlete of mine back at Trinity Collegiate back in South Carolina. This is a guy that we called Biggie. His actual name is Deshaun Smalls. He's anything but doing a 700 bench squat. And that is that. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there really quick, just to show everybody, like, hey, I've been able to produce some high quality numbers in the weight room. I've been able to create strong athletes. My last year at Trinity Collegiate, we had one injury. It was a hamstring, and it was in the state title game. So it took all the way until the state title game for us to have a soft tissue injury. My year at Sussex, my time at Sussex, we didn't really have any major injuries from guys who actually followed protocol. My time at DMA and my time at Thomas McCain, no major injuries either. So everywhere I've been able to help the program produce better athletes. I've been able to help programs, reduce soft tissue injuries. And that's signs of good programming. So once again, signs of bad programming, it creates slow athletes, soft tissue injuries, and burnout by July. But I want to help you guys learn how to make good, effective programming going into this off season. So first and foremost, let's talk about the pros versus high school. Because I know a lot of coaches, they see what, Derrick Henry, King Henry's doing, and they try to copy that. They see what Christian McCaffrey's doing, and they try to copy that. That's all good and well, but understand what you have, at the high school level. Because pros, they have a full-time staff. They have the resources for recovery. They have GPS tracking. They have full nutrition teams. High schools really just need simplicity, structure, and consistency. High schools don't really have nutrition teams. High schools don't really have the best recovery resources. High schools, if lucky, have a full-time athletic trainer, and that's about it. So in the off season, the 3 things we really need to prioritize in this order is durability, strength, speed, and power. I know that's 4 things technically, but speed and power can be combined together. So durability, how long can an athlete continue? How long can an athlete go for without getting hurt? Strength, how much stronger is that athlete getting over time? Speed and power, how much faster or how more elusive or how stronger acceleration forces does this athlete produce after the offseason? So the offseason should have 3 priorities, and this is it. And I did throw this out there for those watching. If you want a calendar model, this is like a basic 12-week model that I like to follow. Weeks 1 through 4, we're going to really focus on movement plus base strength. What that means is we're actually just going to learn how to do proper movements. You'd be surprised how many kids don't know how to properly squat, how many kids don't know how to properly bench. And whenever it comes to hang clean, power clean, that's a whole different topic for another day, because that is one of the most difficult movements that most young athletes struggle with learning, just because it's such a dynamic movement. So weeks 1 through 4, we're really just focusing on movement. We're focused on functional training. We're focused on getting that good baseline of strength. Ideally, I like to have a max out at the end of week 4. A lot of people go, well, why not week 1? Is because weeks 1 through 3, that very first part of week 4 as well, I want to teach guys how to move properly. I want to teach guys how to move with the bar properly, how to move weight effectively and safely. Then, at the end of week 4, we can do a max out. Weeks 5 through 8, and once again, this is off of a 12-week model. 5 through 8, we're really focused on building strength. Then weeks 9 through 12, we'll focus more on power and speed and acceleration. All right. So every proper week should include 2 to 4 strength sessions, 2 speed exposure sessions, 2 to 3 conditioning sessions, and a lot of hamstring and trunk work as well as mobility. So we have already kind of touched on hamstring and trunk importance, and I think those are the two big things that need to be developed in younger athletes is hamstring effectiveness, how to use your hamstrings, learning how to use your hamstrings, and learning how to brace your core, learning how to actually use your core, learning how to use your hips, learning how to use your posterior chain altogether. So let me go back really quick. But talking about hamstring and trunk work more, if you think about it, the posterior chain, the hamstrings, the trunk, which is your core, athletes use these more than anything. Athletes use these to stop and start. They use these for change of direction. They use these to brace for contact. So if we could really focus on strengthening the hamstring and the trunk and the hips of our high school athletes, I believe that they're going to become a more effective athlete. Regardless of the 2 to 4 strength sessions, the 2 speed exposure sessions, the 2 to 3 conditioning sessions, if you could really double down and get your athletes more effective whenever it comes to things such as building effective hamstrings, building a effective hip, building a effective trunk. I believe your athletes are going to perform so much better. All right, so speaking of speed, a lot of times, I know a lot of coaches like the feed the cats method, which is a lot of low volume, high intensity. So it's really trying to get the bang for your buck without, running athletes into the ground. I am a big fan of that as well. I believe anytime you're training for speed, it's just short distances. So think about the average length of time a play is for our sport. It's not very long. It's 3 to 4 seconds, if that. If it's a long run, then you're looking at 10 seconds. But, most of the time, our plays are very pause, right? So a lot of our sport is 3 to 4 second plays with a 60-second pause in between. There's no reason we should have our athletes training like triathlon athletes. There's no reason we should have our athletes training like track stars. While track is good for, football athletes, in reality, we shouldn't be training them like it because that's not what the sport is designed as. If we can train our athletes how to get the most explosion out of that 3 to 4 second play, then learn to fully recover within that 60 seconds, that helps the athlete so much more. I can't tell you the amount of times that I see so many coaches, it's like, hey, we're going to do 50-yard gassers, and we're going to do 20 of them until everybody finishes up under a certain time. Like, what does that teach the athlete? It doesn't do anything for the athlete. It doesn't get the athlete prepared for the sport. Now, if we were to do, let's say we start on the goal line and go to the 10, so sprint to the 10, jog back, that's teaching our athlete, hey, this is the amount of time, the amount of exposure you're going to have with sprint mechanics compared to the amount of time you're probably going to have with recovery. Because by the time we get to that next sprint, they should be fully recovered. All right, so we shouldn't be trying to have our athletes running 50 to 100 yards at a time. Have them sprint hard for 10 yards, then jog for 10 yards. Sprint for 10, jog for 10. Because you're now teaching the body, hey, this sport is about fast, explosive runs with a few seconds, 30 to 60-ish seconds of recovery in between. All right. So, also speed requires perfect mechanics. I don't think coaches teach that enough. If you don't know how to teach it, you don't know how to teach it. But, without proper sprint mechanics, you can't expect an athlete to become better at sprinting. It's like asking an athlete to become stronger at squatting, but they don't know the proper mechanics for squatting. So teach the mechanics for sprinting. All right, then stop before sloppy. What that means is whenever we start seeing form get sloppy, whenever it comes to speed training, pull the plug. Say, okay, cool, we're starting to lose form. We're starting to get burned out. We're starting to lose our stride. We're starting to lose our knee drive. We're starting to lose our ankle flexion. Let's go ahead and call it quits here for today, because once again, how do you expect an athlete to get better at sprinting or get faster if their mechanics are all messed up? And the 80-20 rule, I think this is where a lot of coaches get it mixed up. A lot of coaches always think that to get stronger, we have to have high intensity all the time. That's not true. You need to live by the 80-20 rule. It's 80% controlled volume, 20% high intensity. This is both for strength and speed, excuse me. So it's 80%. So 80% high intensity and 20% control leads to injury, muscle breakdown, etc. So like what the etc. is like this is where your athletes get hurt. This is where they don't start. This is where they're not growing muscle, and like the muscle that they have is starting to deteriorate because the intensity is too high. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place to push the 1 rep max to 80% and to push the RPE to a 9 and to really have them try to see like like how many times can you rep your old max for like a 5x2 day or a 5x1 day, but those days are few and far in between. Most of the time, we need to work on controlled volume. We need to work on actually tapping into the neuromuscular system and actually growing the muscle and strengthening the muscle and getting the mind to muscle connection proper, or the mind to muscle connection, steady, if you will. And this is a weekly layout that I just came up with off the fly for this video. This is not the one that we follow here at Cortland, just because I have guys in the weight room Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. But come the full off season, our layout will look like this. So come summertime, our layout will look like this. So Monday will be lower strength and acceleration. So really just getting, really good at, exploding off of the ball, exploding off the line, exploding off that first step. Tuesday is upper body strength. So think we're really focusing on the chest, focusing on the shoulders. We would ideally make that day more of like a push day, if you will. Then we'll throw a quick aerobic base on there. Once again, we don't want to treat our football players like track athletes or like track stars, because that's not what they are. To be honest, most of the time, your football players are not being asked to run long distances for a period of time. They're asked to run short distances very fast in short matters of time, right? So that aerobic base is more or less just like a slight jog, just trying to get the blood flowing, just trying to keep the body in shape, just trying to keep the cardiovascular system in shape as well. Not really trying to get them to break any type of mile time or anything like that. We can simply, say, hey, we're going to, for 10 minutes, we're going to do, a jogging pace for 20 yards, a walking pace for 10, a jogging pace for 20, a walking pace for 10, a jogging pace for 20. We're going to do that up and down the field for 10 yards. So they're still getting that benefit of recovering in a short period of time, while also just having that good endurance cardiovascular session within the 20-yard jog intervals. Then on Wednesday, we'll do a mobility or yoga day. I'm really big on yoga. I'm really big on our athletes doing yoga in Cortland, just because it's good for their body, it's good for recovery, it's good to get the knots out of the body and to get the body more movable, mechanical. Yeah, movable. Let's just go with movable. I was trying to use a different word, but we'll just call it movable. On Thursdays, lower power, and what COD means is change of direction. So this is kind of like your 3-cone drill, your 4-cone drill, just drills that are really working on change of direction or change of pace. Friday, another upper body day. Oh, I forgot to throw this in here. So Monday, the lower strength day would be more around the quads and the hips. Thursday, it will be more around the glutes, the hamstrings, and the hips. So on Friday would be more of a pull eccentric day. Friday would be more, think of your trap bar deadlift, your barbell row, your pull session. So we're really trying to get the traps, the upper back, the neck muscle strengthened and built to help with concussion protocol, to help with concussion, prevention. Because like at the end of the day, all strength and conditioning is injury prevention. That's all it is. Like that's what strength and conditioning is. It's all about injury prevention, and all athletic training is about helping the athlete get back from injury faster. All right. So Saturday, we do more mobility or yoga. And then Sunday we have off. And then like the tempo stuff on Friday with the upper power day is a lot like on Tuesday with the aerobic based stuff. So just trying to get some cardio in for the heart, trying to get some, good, just steady pace, low intensity, steady state cardio in there, which is also known as list cardio. All right, so this is an example of a lower strength and acceleration day. Acceleration, we got 6 to 8 sets of 10 to 12 yards. Sprints, they get a full rest after that. Then we got back squat 5x5. RDL is a 4x6 to 8 repetition. Split squat 3x8 on each side. Nordic curls 2 to 3 sets for 4 to 6 reps. Then we have dead bugs 3x8 each side. This is another example of upper body strength that I like to do. So we bench press 5x5. Now, of course, like with all of your compound stuff, the percentages and the RPE will change, of course. I always suggest to start your 1 rep max or your RPE closer to 50 to 60 or 5 to 6, then work your way up as you're working through that cycle. So as you're working your way up through that cycle, you want to try to get as close to 9 as you can before your next max day. So let's go back to this. So with the upper strength stuff, we also have pull-ups or a row. We got 5x5 or 5x8 incline dumbbell press. We got 3x8 or 3x10. Face pulls, we got 3x15 or 3x20. Then easy aerobic work. Once again, that's that 15 to 25 minutes lists, very steady state cardio. That's just really good for the heart and the cardiovascular system. Then we can look at a lower power and a unilateral day. So here, we're really focusing on, explosion. So we got box or broad jumps for 4x3. Then we got trap bar deads, 6 sets of 2. Of course, as reps goes down, we want to increase the weight. Then we got the rear foot elevated split squat, 4x6 each side, hip thrust 3x8 to 12. Then we got short change of direction drills. We'll do 6x10. And then our next upper power day with conditioning will look like this: med ball throws 4x3, a push press or a military press, 6 sets of 3. Once again, that should be a moderate weight, so probably like a RPE of 7. Then we have a row with fast intent, so to really emphasize that explosion within a row, 4x6. Farmer carries, we could do 4x20 to 40 yards. Then tempo runs, once again, 8 to 12 sets, 60 to 80 yards at 70%. So what this means is they are going to do 8 to 12 rounds of a 60 to 80 yard sprint at 70%. So with this, what we're trying to do, once again, we want them to sprint hard for about 60 yards, then jog the 20 to let the heart rate come back down. Then they'll have a full rest session of anywhere from 35 to 45 seconds to let the heart rate come back down. And then we're back to sprinting another 60 yards. All right, so progression rules. We can add weight or we can add reps weekly. So I think a lot of times what happens is a lot of coaches, they tend to try to add weight and reps too quickly. You can do it weekly, but we shouldn't be going from doing an RPE of 5 or a 1 rep max of 50, and then the next week we're RPE 8 or 1 rep max of 80%. We should not be jumping up that high. I always say 5% at a time. If it's reps, add 1 to 2 reps per week. It's easier to add weight compared to adding reps, in my opinion, because we can always add weight and then decrease reps. So deload week should be deload week should be week 4 to week 8. What that means is if you have a heavy load week where we are training really high intense, so I'm talking about like RPE 7, RPE 8, RPE 9, or 1 rep max of 70 to 90, and we're really pushing intensity, you might want to look at having a deload week between week 4 and week 8. I always like to use a rule of thumb that if we have worked our way up to a max, we're going to work our way back down and have a deload. So if you go up, you always need to go backwards in a way. I'll also track your main lifts. I know a lot of times coaches, they like to track things like dumbbell curls and tricep extensions, and oh my God, little Johnny PR'd on his lat pull down. Like, nobody cares. I'll tell you now, nobody cares. Track the main lifts. That's what really shows if somebody is getting stronger. That's bench, squat, and like a trap bar deadlift or just a normal deadlift, depending on who you are and depending on what system you use. I like to use trap bar deadlifts just because I think it's a lot safer for athletes. I don't have to teach them I don't have to teach them the actual compound of pulling with a straight bar. I think it's a lot easier for younger athletes to use a trap bar instead of a straight bar. You can use a straight bar if you want to use a straight bar. That's great, but in my opinion, I think a trap bar is better. I know some coaches like track hang cleans and power cleans. You can, but always be sure we're teaching it right, because once again, that's a very compoundish type of movement that has a lot of moving parts to it. Also track sprint times. So don't really track, hey, little Timmy can run a mile in 6.5 minutes. Track how fast little Timmy or little Johnny can run 40 yards. And hamstring protection matters. We've been talking about that a lot within this video. Focus on essential strength, focus on sprint exposure, and focus on posterior chain work, which we talked about a good bit. And stop copying workouts from Instagram. Some of the big things that I encourage all coaches to study if they're trying to get a better strength and conditioning background: study periodization, study sprint mechanics, study energy systems, and study how injury reduction, aligns with strength and conditioning. Also, don't just make kids tired. I see a lot of coaches, they believe a effective workout is one where little Timmy or little Johnny is huffing and puffing and laying on the gym floor in a pool of their own sweat. That's not a productive workout. That's not really building anything up. Focus on building strong hips, focus on building a stable trunk, focus on powerful strides, and focus on building durable shoulders. That's one of the biggest things I think a lot more coaches within the strength and conditioning world need to be harping on a little bit more, is just building the shoulders, building the neck up within football. Because if we have stronger shoulders and a stronger neck, we're less likely to get concussed. And then, as always, if you guys want to connect with me, if you want to pick my brain more about this topic, and if you want to sit down and really, have me go over your strength and conditioning program within the offseason, let me know. I'm always here to help, always here to talk ball, always here to help your program get better. And, as always here to build even better young men. My email is coachmikebarfield@gmail.com. My Twitter/X is @_Coach Barfield. Then my Instagram is @CoachMikeBarfield. I really hope this video helped you coaches gain some insight into proper off-season training. Once again, just in a quick recap, focus on building the hamstrings, focus on building the core, focus on building the hips, and focus on building the shoulders. If you want really effective football players, build those 4 things, and I promise you will have a very effective football player. Once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet, just take 3 seconds and subscribe for me. It would mean so much to me. God bless. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I will talk to some of you soon.